Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. For the past 3 years, we've been exchanging voice notes on everything from the highs in Porto to the lows of Potter. Each week, this podcast will take you inside our unfiltered thoughts on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
I was up nice and early for today. As a family, we thought we'd go to Box Hill and have a good long walk, get the kids out and actually have a good bit of family time together, get back in time for the Chelsea game and the Grand Prix and, of course, the Masters tonight. But, yeah, that nice long walk in the sunshine was brought back home to earth to another Chelsea performance that leaves much to be desired. I think as a whole, we didn't play that bad, although we are playing one of the worst teams in the league based on points and where they are on the table. That's 1 point from 6 we've taken off of Ipswich, which does feel a little bit gross. Having said that, we certainly could have defended the first goal better. I feel as though when Ipswich go through, maybe Colwell was the one that's at fault slightly because he's not really tracking his man, but I think Tosin sees it. And I just don't think he goes over to help his mate. I think he just needs to see that, step in and just basically just take the ball away from Enciso, but he doesn't, and it allows him just to get the shot away, and before you know it, you're 1-0 down. And then the second goal is a good bit of play by them. They got us into a bit of a kerfuffle, and it's a great deep cross to the back post, and yeah, it was well taken by Ben Johnson with another assist from Enciso. He's really been a thorn in our side for the last couple of seasons, hasn't he? His goals for Brighton and goals and assists today. He had a good game at Portman Road when we played him earlier in the season too. But, Chelsea did quite well in the early going before they went a goal behind. But just unfortunately, we just can't seem to put the ball in the net. We really are struggling to do that at the moment. We did score 3 very good goals in midweek against Legia Warsaw, but it's hard to know what sort of opposition you're playing against. You just don't know enough of these European teams. I thought we ripped Legia Warsaw to pieces on Thursday, but again today we just looked a little bit out of sorts. We just seem to wait an awful lot of time. When we do counter-attack on teams, it's like we go, right, we get to a certain point, 75% up the field, and then we wait for everybody to get back, and then it makes it doubly difficult to get through anybody. We seem to have lost that early season panache where we would go 1-2 passes into the box and score. We are certainly second-guessing ourselves now, and it's becoming a little bit frustrating. I thought after the break, you're 2-0 down, you're fearing the worst, but in your mind, you're thinking, look, this is Ipswich. If we can get a goal back, there's a very good chance that we might end up getting a draw or a win out of this, obviously hoping for the latter. And what's so frustrating for me is that obviously Noni picks that ball up. He took his player on the outside. He got to the byline and put the ball across, and we scored. But when did we do that again for the rest of the game? It's a big thing at the moment for wingers. You see it a lot, and it does seem to be. Gary Neville's mentioned about overcoaching, and Roy Keane was sort of in that conversation. But you look at it and you go, the wingers, they dribble up to the byline and they pass it back to the fullback. And Gusto has had more touches of the ball than anybody in the field in that second half, and it was just embarrassing. And Gusto is playing. He's not even our best player. He's a good player, but he's had a poor season by his standards last year. He's never scored a career goal as far as I'm aware, and we're giving him most touches on the ball. It just doesn't make any sense. You've got Neto, Madueke and Sancho in good opportunities, but they're afraid to attack their player on the outside. And this has just been a running theme, I think, through a lot of teams that are just sick and tired of the winger going up to the byline and passing backwards. Why are we so scared now of putting the ball in the box? You've done it once and you've scored from it inside 16 seconds in the second half, and then didn't proceed to do it for the next 45. And the trouble was, you knew the longer the game went, there would be a bit of time wasting and they would kill the game. In actual fairness to Ipswich, they didn't time waste as much as I thought they would. They held on to the ball now and again a little bit longer than they should do, but not as bad as some teams. And there was enough chances for Chelsea to win that game, even at the very death when Enzo goes through, who, by the way, I thought had another very good game. And that shot that he had, and Palmer, the goalkeeper for Ipswich, made that one-handed save behind himself. And that's a 1 in a million save, to be fair. So, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest, guys. I'm obviously bitterly disappointed. I felt as though we did enough to win the game we had plenty of chances, plenty of shots at goal. But there's just something missing from this team. What would have been nice, and I called for it at half-time, was where was Reece James? Yet again, our captain, arguably our best player, and yet he doesn't get a minute of football. And we're going to hear stories about he's tired, he's being overworked, he's not... Why is he on the... Why is he there then? Like, why is he on the bench? If he can't come on for 12 minutes... When Sancho scores that brilliant second goal, which I forgot to mention that, to be fair, brilliant second goal from Sanchez, whipped back and into the top corner. But even at that point, bring him on. Take Gusto off again if you want. Like, we don't need all the... Oh, I'm just sitting there going, you've got Reece James, he can come into midfield, he can go and play kind of right wing back, he can do whatever you want. At that stage, Ipswich are basically trying to hold on. But we didn't. We constantly leave this guy on the bench, and it's like, I don't understand. I know, I fully understand injuries. I fully understand that you're trying to work a player back, but if you haven't got 15 minutes in you, what's the point of him being there? It makes no sense. I get the whole resting players for bigger games and whatever, but this is a huge game. We've drawn against Brentford now and Ipswich in the same week. It's just not good enough. And I don't think we probably deserve Champions League based on that. We dropped too many points against too many poor sides week after week. And the idea of us beating Newcastle, Forest, Liverpool, Man United just feels a stretch too far for me at the moment. I just don't see that we're going to beat these teams. If we were to win 3 of them, oh my word, I think we qualify automatically. But yeah, it's more drop points. The high of Spurs. Sheen and I went to the Spurs home game. We win that one. We then get Brentford and we play a fairly mediocre team. Yes, there were some injury concerns, so I understand. I'm not playing 2 games in 3 days is a lot to ask for players that have got hamstring injuries. But yeah, you've had a game in midweek. You've got a game today where not everybody's played. He's mixing them and matching the team every single week to try and patch minutes here and there. But whatever he's doing, it's still not producing wins. And the mixing and matching of the defence is an issue. The goalkeeper's in, then he's out. Tosin's in, then he's out. Chalobah's in, then he's right back, then he's centre back. There's just so much change. Obviously, Reece James played against Brentford at left back, and then Cucurella didn't. Then he's back in again today. To me, there's too much fanning around. There's too much changing and chopping of the side. And I think he's trying to sort of say, well, I'm doing it to keep fresh legs in the team or whatever, but the Europa Conference League is not stress-inducing, and a lot of these players didn't even play in the Palmer and I forget who it was. That was another player. They weren't even in the squad for the first phase of the Europa Conference League, so they haven't got that excuse. And the other main issue is that obviously Palmer and Jackson just still can't score a goal. I didn't think they played badly today, but there was just times where you're thinking they're just not confident enough. Jackson, to me, he obviously hits the post in the first half, but other than that, he worked hard. He gets back and nicks the play. He does that very, very well. But you're in the team to score goals, and I don't remember him having a shot at goal in the second half. And this is another huge point. Ipswich gets so many players behind the ball, and we're left to kind of try and thread a ball through 8, 9, 10 players all the time, and it's just so bloody difficult. We were doing things at pace earlier in the season, and now we've gone back to being a little bit slow again. And unfortunately, yeah, it's ended up being a 2-2 draw. It's a hard one to swallow because I honestly thought we'd win this game 4-0 today. I just thought in my head we're going to romp these. I just had a good result midweek. We had obviously 0-0 against Brentford, which wasn't great, but the win against Spurs, I thought this is the one we need. We'll whack these today, and then we'll figure everything else out after this. But once again, it's turned out to be a pretty poor result. But good to come back from a 2-0 deficit, obviously. But for me, it's just not enough.
A great summary, Joe. It's a really disappointing one, isn't it? That's the sort of a clear immediate reaction. I think the Spurs win that we were very excitedly talking about last time now feels like, when you look at what Spurs have done at Wolves today, they're having the worst season that they've ever had in the Prem, pretty much, aren't they? And I said after that game that what we do next is really important, and it's almost forecasting ahead. If we can win the next two very winnable games at Brentford and Ipswich, that we are in probably a really, really good position going into what is that tough run at the end. And we've blown it. Really, we've really blown it. It's the Brentford game. We got lots of criticism for the lineup. I did actually understand the rotation. I think people like he's resting for the Warsaw game. He never was at Brentford. It was clearly that Jackson and Palmer were just back from injury and couldn't play. And I kind of got it. And if we had nicked a goal in the second half and pinched the points, it would have felt like genius. But to be honest, in that game, the draw was about right. It was one of those, you kind of move on and go, well, you know what, if you win your home games, beat Ipswich today, then again, you're not in a bad position, particularly with Forest obviously losing yesterday. But yeah, it's a really poor result, to be fair, poor set of two results, and kind of leaves us, especially after I'm recording this just after the Newcastle game's finished. And yeah, we again, when Newcastle won the League Cup, we said, oh, how will they react? Will there be a bit of will it galvanise them, or will they go the other way? Well, it looks like that has galvanised them, and they've got a tough run. But playing like that, there's just that momentum, isn't there now, with them, even with Villa, that you feel like is gonna carry them. So yeah, really left ourselves in a sticky spot. And if I'm being honest, there's sort of two things I want to sort of pick on, really. One is the natural reaction to the game today is to blame Maresca. He's the manager. He's the fall guy for everything at the moment, really, that's going wrong at Chelsea. And actually, I don't know. The lineup was brought out on our little WhatsApp group. Everyone's very positive about it. He's not really accountable for those poor defensive errors that you spoke about, Joe. He's not accountable for just poor finishing in some places, poor final balls in others. As you said, that lack of confidence from Jackson and Palmer, I think it really has been the kind of trigger to our season going downhill, isn't it, if we're being honest? We haven't talked about it in huge detail, but obviously both had injuries, particularly Jackson, but neither have really done it consistently since Christmas, and that has not coincidentally coincided with us really going off the boil. And he's not accountable for that. He is accountable for the style of football, which I think we're all struggling with as Chelsea fans at times, and he is accountable for the changes. And yeah, I'm with you with Reece James. It just felt in that last 15, 20 minutes, when it was clear that it was going to make that one last sub, I was just thinking, well, you've got Reece, who is a big moments player as well, isn't he? If there's a free kick later on, as we've seen already this season, and think for England, you'd want him on the pitch. If there's a shot from distance to be had, you'd want him on the pitch. It just felt, even if it was taken off a Casado or an Enzo, I'd kind of would have liked Reece on the pitch at that point. And the other one I was thinking about was Tyreek George. He's really done well every time he's played for Chelsea this season. Obviously, hot off a goal in midweek. I just thought with Neto, with 15 minutes to go, why don't we see him on the pitch again? Go with the players who have got a bit of momentum. And that was a shame for me, but look, we had the chances. We had the chances to win the game. Their keeper is, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming he was made man of the match. We had something ridiculous like 36 shots, 12 on target. You play that game 10 times, you probably win 9 of them, let's be fair. But it doesn't detract from the fact that Chelsea are in a really sticky spot when it comes to the run-in, which I think is probably the second part we should talk about in this pod potentially. And then the other thing is the things that we know Chelsea lack haven't changed, have they? You look at it, we need a goalkeeper, whether that's Petrovic next season. We know we need an upgrade there. We need a big bastard centre back to really dominate in the box, and we need another centre forward option. We need someone else who can compete with Jackson when it's not happening for him. And whether that is that man Delap who came on the pitch and was very lively today, or whether it's we go big on an Osimhen or someone like that in the summer, we have to do something, and we have to hope that whatever we do in that area works, because again, it's one of those games where you see it so many times, don't you, with Liverpool and City over the years, that those big goal scorers, whether it's Salah or Haaland, whoever, just win your games like that quite comfortably, because they're just monsters in the box, and we just don't have that. We just don't have that. My thought on the run-in, and you touched on it there, Joe, is that we might just not be quite good enough for the Champions League at this stage, which seems sort of really negative, doesn't it, when I say it out loud? But to be honest, we now, with the result today, we have to go almost certainly to either in Newcastle and get some sort of result, whether that's a draw or a win, or it might come down to having to win at Forest on the last day, for example. Both of those things are possible. I don't think it's dead yet, I should say that. I don't think that we're dead. I think the next couple of games, again, are massive, obviously, going to Fulham and Everton, to us both really tough games. But if we're still in the running, when we come to that proper hard run at the end, I don't think that we couldn't do it. I just think it's unlikely. And to be fair, if we can't go to Forest, for example, on the last day, needing a win to get in the Champions League, and we don't do it, then we don't deserve Champions League, and we're not probably good enough for it yet. And I don't know, I look at the teams in the Champions League this year and how they play and just think, I don't know if I want to see Chelsea against these guys. I don't know if we're at that level yet. So it's a very negative thing to say, isn't it? And I almost believe I'm hearing myself saying it, but maybe the Europa League would be about right for us next year, and we go and try and build again. Where that leaves us in terms of doing business in the summer, I don't know, but I don't think not getting in the Champions League necessarily stops you getting a Delap, for example. And I think a lot of the other businesses are getting a centre back, and I don't think it's dependent on that. But yeah, I don't know, a little bit down on us. I just think the way that the other teams like Newcastle and Villa at times and Forest are playing, I just think, yeah, they've just got a bit more about them, and we still don't, which is frustrating. But in the Premier League, you pretty much finish where you deserve, and if we end up sixth again, which is where we are right now, that probably feels about right, doesn't it? Which is, yeah, rather depressing. So I don't know. I'll hand back over to you, Joe, for more thoughts. But it's going to be a funny end to the season. We've got a really tough run, and one thing that I would be interested to get your thoughts on, I think we might differ on this, because I think you've been pretty down on it, really, but let's say we finish sixth this year, which would be pretty much the same as Pochettino year. We might even end up in a very similar points tally. So we do that, but we do win the Conference League and have a big night beating a Fiorentina or a Betis. Where's that going to sit for you in terms of a season? And I guess where's it going to sit with a decision on Maresca? Obviously, he'll get the World Club Cup as well. But would you then be looking to go, right, you failed, you haven't got Champions League, let's replace? Or are you thinking you give him another year to build? Because you could really, I think a lot of fans would go either way on that at the moment. But yeah, let me know your thoughts.
Well done, mate. That was a really good note. Very much enjoyed that. Thanks for the questions. I'll do my best to attempt to answer what I can and see what people think and if you agree with me or not. But I suppose if we just sort of continue on from the game, just very, very briefly, it sort of links in with Delap, really, because obviously he's a player that we're obviously chasing. We are linked with him every 5 minutes in the newspapers and obviously online and stuff. So he seems to be the one that a lot of teams are after as well. So there's other teams clearly chasing him too. So whether it would matter that we were in the Champions League or not, if someone like Newcastle made the Champions League and then decided to go for him, we may miss out. But based on what I saw today, he was only on the field for about 10 to 15 minutes. He caused all sorts of problems. Obviously, in the first game against them at Portman Road, he was absolutely unbelievable. Like he tore us apart. I haven't seen a centre forward do that all season long to that degree. And then today he come on, let's say, for that short period, and he gave Chanapar the absolute runaround. To be fair, I thought Trev had one of his poorer games today. I think he just seemed to be a little bit out. Again, he's at right back, then he's at centre back, and he just did some uncharacteristic sort of errors. And he's usually a pretty cool customer, but today he just seemed to be very, a bit all over the shop. But again, I think that comes from the pressure that the lap that brings. He's a willing runner. He's prepared to go and do the donkey work and the hard, nasty stuff. He gets in the channels. He holds the ball up well. But when he gets in the channel, he doesn't just hold it and hope. And a bit like Chris Wood, who'd get it and play it backwards. He actually takes players on, drives into the box, wins corners, wins free kicks. He had a very good header that was saved, I think, by Sanchez. May have dropped down to a defender, but again, he's a big presence in the box for that. So he's a physical presence too. So I think someone like him would be I've seen him a few times. I saw him against Villa. I've seen him against Newcastle in the season. I've seen him against us twice now, and I think he's really been a good player. I've never seen him play bad. So again, he's the right criteria of what Chelsea are doing. He's that age bracket, and he seems to be someone that I think would fit in very well with this team. He's definitely a different option to Jackson. Both like to work hard for the team, but I think he's also he's more of an aerial threat, and I think that would give us a lot of strength going forward. I also just want to touch on the fact that football is played so much now with stats, figures, physio reports. And look, I don't know the extent of Reece James' injury, and I know he's been out a long, long time, and I never want to see this guy injured ever again. So I'm not trying to sort of go one camp or the other. But like I said in my previous note, if he's fit enough to be on the bench, he must be fit enough to play. Because what if Gusto got injured inside 2 minutes today, a bit like the Ipswich player did? He came on and was injured inside 1 minute as to go off. What if we had to do that today with Reece? Are you telling me that he couldn't play 40 minutes? Of course he could have done. So why couldn't he have come on for 15 minutes plus injury time when Sancho scores that brilliant goal? And you mentioned it in your note, Chris. What if we get a free kick on the edge? What if Reece goes into midfield? Whether he's playing fullback, as we know, Gusto had more touch of the ball than everybody else, like I said in my first voice note. So what if that's Reece James on the ball? Because Gusto doesn't know what to do with it when he gets it. He goes across the field, passes it to left back, and then comes back inside and passes it out to the winger and comes back inside. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't shoot. And when he does shoot, it's absolutely horrific. When you saw that free kick that we were about 30 yards outside the box, and he got past Gusto and he kicked it straight out for a goal kick. And that's the extent, unfortunately, of what he's been asked to do, and he's not comfortable doing that. He's more of a natural fullback. But what if that's Reece James there? It delivers a great cross, maybe threads a great ball through, has a cracking shot that comes off the bar and falls to somebody. That's the player that you need on the ball, not Malo Gusto. And I'm not trying to hate on Malo Gusto, by the way, but it's just the facts. Football is emotional to us all. And you've only got to go back to last season when we played Nottingham Forest away. From memory, we were 2-1 down. Reece comes on, and Sterling had a good game that day too, but Reece comes on, he puts that unbelievable cross in. And I think it's Jackson at the back post, just smashes it in with his head. We win 3-2. Reece goes to the crowd. The crowd will go absolutely loopy. That's where I think Maresca loses it for me. He needs to see that what that would do for this team, that group of players, and for us as fans. You've got my right to run on the field and do a Jose Mourinho celebration. Go and be a lunatic if that happens. Take all the plaudits for bringing him on and saying you've managed his minutes well and whatever you want to do. I don't care. But that, to me, was a prime opportunity to bring on a player of world-class ability and to go and win you the game today. It might not happen. But at least I could have said, well, okay, at least he came on. I'm not buying the fact that Reece James couldn't play 15 minutes today. I'm just really pissed off with that. That's something that's upset me a little bit. And I think that's where football is a little bit dry nowadays. I spoke about the wingers always going down the byline and cutting back and passing back to the fullback. Like, it was obvious that when Noni did his thing inside 16 seconds of the second half, I'm thinking to myself, we should now do this all the time because they couldn't live with him. And yet we never did it again for another, didn't do it again for the rest of the second half. So, yeah, that disappoints me to say about Reece not coming on and that sort of emotional detachment that some of these new managers seem to have. And I suppose that sort of leads me on to the Champions League qualification. I think we all get very much involved. It's high on our things that we all want to see. I know what you're saying about are Chelsea ready for that sort of level of competition, and if we played in it next season, would we get embarrassed? I think based on what we've seen so far this season, I wouldn't think we'd go too far. I think it's the notoriety of being in it and actually the kudos of being in it as much as anything else. It sends signals that maybe you're not that you're back, but I think when you get out of big European competition for too long, I think you can sort of lose that little edge. You look at the teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich and Atletico. They're always in it. They're always every single year. They're always competing. They're always at the high end of these semi-finals, quarterfinals, finals, and I think the Premier League is very demanding of all the sides. That's why you're seeing lots of different teams, Villa and Leicester over the years, and other sides as well that are now pushing to get in there. Nottingham Forest this season. It shows you the level of quality that's in it and how hard it is to finish in the top 4 or 5 positions. I think it's going to feel worse if we don't make it into the European places, because it obviously has been dropped down to the 5th position, and you'd feel like surely we must be the 5th best team in England. But at the moment, it's proving rather difficult and unlikely. Something definitely changed around Christmas time, not because of the results necessarily, but we seem to change our style of play. And I think at least I knew under Pochettino what I was going to get each week. And don't get me wrong, there were some poor results under him around Christmas as well. And he had a much slower start than Maresca did, but he had good momentum. I think, did we win the last 6 games or win 5 and draw 1 or something of our last 6? And we scored plenty of goals. We were whacking teams for fun. And you looked at it on the face of it, and you felt like he was always going to get the sack, didn't you? It was always on the cards, it seems, somehow. And I would have liked to have seen Pochettino have another season. I know there was a debate between the 2 owners, which is never a great thing. One guy wanted him, one guy didn't. But I think he had something brewing there. But I think it came down to what type of players that Pochettino wanted. I think Poch did want some experienced players, and Chelsea weren't prepared to go down that road. So it feels like a stupid appointment in the first place. They've said themselves that they would rather have gone straight to Maresca and not had the year of Pochettino, which I think is a little bit disrespectful. That came out in the media recently. And yeah, I just think that it would have been nice to have seen Poch have another crack at it, even with this team, because I think they were starting to buy into his ideas. And I think Cole Palmer was obviously playing very well under him. And it's very difficult when you basically chop and change the manager every single season. And I suppose that leads me on to Maresca now. If Chelsea don't make the Champions League, which is, I think it's going to be a tough ask from here, if you do decide to sack him before the Club World Cup, which I don't think they will, if they sack him after the Club World Cup, then you're back to square one again. All these players are going to have to learn a new system under a new manager. And which managers are out there? Who do people really want? You can speak about Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen. You could argue Iriola at Bournemouth, but no one's a guarantee. Excuse me, my son is just asking about McIlroy. I've got a few quid on Rory McIlroy to win the Masters there, so apologies for that. Yeah, I was saying about Iriola at Bournemouth as another option, but again, these are people that are they're unknowns. Alonso's doing it in Germany, and the standard in Germany of football, I don't think is as good as the Premier League. And Iriola at Bournemouth has got absolutely no pressure on him whatsoever. It's just a free hit every single week. So I just don't know that there's not a Pep Guardiola or a Jose Mourinho, or in my eyes, someone out there now that I would definitely say, yes, go and get him. I think Luis Enrique at PSG would be a fantastic option, but he's probably never going to leave there, particularly if they win the Champions League this season. So I think you maybe keep him and see how things develop in the summer, which is not everybody's favourite thing to hear, I know, but I'm not even saying that I want that. But I think it might be the best thing to do if the players are going to continue to learn. And just lastly, I'll sort of leave it on this and say football has a funny way of doing things sometimes that you just don't expect. I'm not saying Chelsea aren't going to do this. We could end up losing every game from now to the end of the season. But I can remember under our big players and big managers of years gone by having a bad result at home against somebody or a bad result away, and then finding that you had Barcelona away in the new camp, followed by Man United at home under Alex Ferguson in the league midweek. Then you had Liverpool in the cup on the Sunday, and you're staring down 3 games like that, and you're going, I can't see us winning any of these. We're going to lose all 3 of these games. And then by the end of the week, you'd won all 3 of those games, and you go, wow, do you know what? I bloody love football. And I think when there's a chance, and there's always a chance at the moment for Chelsea to qualify for the Champions League, even if they do it in the most ugly, disgusting way, no one is going to remember this in 10 years' time. I think they just need to be brave. I think they need to go to Newcastle, go to Nottingham Forest, take Liverpool on at home, obviously take Manchester United on at home, and give it a real go. I think all I'd say to Chelsea players is don't leave anything out there. Don't play at 50%. If you go out and you lose, you don't quite get there, do it by giving your all. And sometimes you're rewarded just for bloody pure hard work. So I think until there's absolutely no chance of us qualifying for Europe, or the main trophy in Europe, I should say, then I think we should all still get behind the team where we can and, and give it some real support. But until then, let's really try and stay behind the team, try and stay behind Maresca where we can. I know he's not everybody's favourite, but, getting down on him and down on the team is never going to achieve anything. So fingers crossed we can still do it.
Yeah, really well said, Joe. I think that's a positive way to actually finish the pod, and yeah, very fair, I would say overall. I think we're all frustrated. I think football is more now than ever a very reactionary game. It's you literally are only as good as your last result, your last performance, and with the I think the momentum after the Spurs game, you really felt like, okay, we can build something and maybe put a little run together, and we just haven't, which is really disappointing. But like you say, if we do get there at this point, it'll be brilliant. And I think with Pochettino, rightly to mention, and we were both disappointed when he left, but so much of that was built from the momentum that he finished the season with those last 5 games. So it just shows how quickly it can change. I remember with him being 3-2 down to Man United with 95 minutes on the clock, and I think messaging you on WhatsApp and going like, he's done. No, that's it. And then we obviously had an incredible 5 or 6 minutes after that, and he's on the pitch going absolutely crazy, and we really didn't look back from that point. So these things can change very, very quickly. Newcastle at the moment, as I said earlier, look like they're in a real run, but that can change as well. We've seen it so many times. We've seen it with ourselves. So let's wait and see. I think I am a big believer, to be honest, in the fact that trophies are more important than getting Champions League. And obviously there are reasons why you should be in the Champions League for all the stuff that you said, Joe, and the financial elements and stuff. But ultimately, I don't ever look back at Chelsea seasons that we just got in the Champions League and think of that as a success. The ones that you win trophies in, that's when you look back at those moments. And for me, clearly Champions League was the goal and was the target. And it might be that Maresca himself does need to get that. But let's go and make sure we win the Conference League, which would be, it's a must-win for us. But the final against Betis or Fiorentina, as it's likely to be, if we get there, will be a proper game, and we'll have to be on it to win that. And it could be quite a special night. And I think West Ham legitimised that competition for me in the way that they won it and reacted as well. So I don't want to necessarily cheapen that achievement if we do it. And this group, as we've said a few times, they need a trophy. This is a very young group of players. It's sort of harks back to Mourinho winning the League Cup with his first Chelsea team, and it was people like Terry and Lampard's first ever trophies. Actually, probably Drogba and Czech as well. It's an important moment, so I think it's really important we get over the line and do that, especially with our record in finals recently. So if we do that, and if we can get in the Champions League with a great finish to the season, I think we'd all feel really, really good. On Maresca himself, I think there's a couple of points here. I think the first one, to echo what you said, Joe, in terms of if we're to replace him in the summer, which, is highly likely if we don't end the season well. These owners have shown they're as ruthless as Roman was. But who are you replacing him with? Because last year when we got Maresca, the other two big names who were in the frame were Thomas Frank and actually McKenna, who we were obviously up against today. And let's be honest, Frank's done a brilliant job at Brentford, but neither of those names particularly fill you with a huge amount of excitement, do they? So I think a decision has to be around like, who you're going to get in, and is it really going to make a big difference? I think that's a big part of it. I think Maresca himself, there is my worry, I think, away from the obvious results aspect is the fit at the club and the response with the fans. He's come out obviously after the game today, for those who haven't seen, and kind of criticised the fans actually for the second goal, saying that the reason Chelsea went long with the goal kick that led to the second goal was that the fans aren't accepting of playing from the back. And it's not a great move. He's not. Mourinho is probably just about the only manager who could just about question the Chelsea fans, and even it didn't always go down well. And I think Maresca's not in a position to do that at the moment. And we talked about it after the Spurs game and said how refreshing it was actually that Chelsea varied their game, used the pace over the top and all those kind of things. And, that pragmatism that you want to see from a manager and from a team. The fact that Maresca is coming out kind of almost us against them, you just don't do it with your own fans. It's not a good mix. And we've said a few times, I think, on the pod that style of football that Maresca really wants, Leicester fans didn't like it at all. We heard that. Chelsea fans don't like it either. And that is probably the bigger long-term worry, because I'm not sure if that changes. And as we've seen, you said it there, Joe, about us sort of changing over Christmas. It's almost like the longer the season's gone on, the more we have played Maresca ball and the less we've all enjoyed it and the less the results have been good as well. That worries me, I would say. So we will see how that plays out. I think from this point, if he does get Champions League, then it's no question that he'll have had actually a very, very good season. So that it's an easy decision. I think if we don't get it, it becomes a conversation that will be had, and we'll certainly react on the podcast here as well. So, yeah, one to watch. So, yeah, let's see. It's going to be, I think, a really, really up and down final few weeks in the season across the board. I don't think that any of these teams around us won't drop points. I think they all will. We saw it with Forest yesterday. No one was expecting that. Newcastle, I think, play Villa next. That one of them is going to drop points. I think there'll be a lot of surprises still to go. So we just need to make sure we're still in and around it. And yeah, let's stay positive. Come on, Chelsea. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.